Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, don't forget to drop me a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below with your thoughts and theories on the topic of the video. Also, don't forget to let me know about any topics or series you'd like to see me talk about in the future on this channel. Okay, so there's this theory that's been going through the fandom recently that admittedly, when I first heard about, I immediately wrote off. But after reading chapter 154 and doing a little bit more research on it, I'm starting to think that this theory might actually hold some weight. And that's the theory that basically a lot of people in the fandom seem to think that Yuno might actually be Lich's son. Okay, so let's start off by listing some of the reasons why this theory actually might be kind of possible. For starters, let's compare Lich and Yuno. We know from the flashbacks that Lich, from the moment he got his grimoire, he was already considered to be an extremely powerful mage, even amongst the elves. And then as we saw through the flashbacks, he quickly became possibly the most powerful mage alive during that time period. Now, as we see with Yuno, Yuno has had his grimoire for what, 6 months, almost a year at this point, and he's quickly become one of the most powerful mages in the Magic Knight Order, being on par with possibly one of the captains, at least on vice captain level. If you look back at it, the only people we've really seen that kind of quick growth from throughout the series have been people who were turned into elves during this arc. Now, considering Yuno was possibly the strongest among those list of people, it would make sense that he would have some kind of connection to Lich if Lich was considered the strongest among the elves. And if we look back to earlier in the series, I believe it was mentioned by Klaus that at some point William Vengeance, the head of the Golden Dawn, Yuno's Magic Knight Order, that he had actually taken a special interest in Yuno. And now that we know from this arc that Captain William Vengeance actually was sharing a body with Patoli, who was pretending to be Lich at the time, now that we know that how close the two of them were, Patoli and Lich, it makes a lot of sense that he actually would take a special interest in Yuno if Yuno actually is Lich's son. Because, he was close to Lich, so he would actually be drawn close to Yuno and actually want to take a special interest in looking out for him and helping him grow as a mage. Speaking of connections and bonds, if Yuno actually is Lich's son, it actually makes a lot more sense as to the reason why he was drawn towards that room where Lich's, I guess, soulless body was being stored this entire time. Because if Lich was actually able to sense Yuno once he entered the base, then it would make sense that, if he recognized that Yuno was his son, he'd want to bring him towards him. And then there's also in the most recent chapter, chapter 154, that Yuno, after his body was retaken by the elf, or supposedly retaken by the elf during the ritual, Hammond and Klaus mentioned that, the elf inside his body hasn't fully become aware of itself yet. And dude, this would actually make a lot of sense because a baby, especially one that was just recently born, if it actually was born, if we look back to the flashback, the most recent flashback, at the end of it, we see Lich holding Tetia's body, and we can't really confirm whether or not she had given birth or not. So for all we know, this baby actually probably did die with her. If it did die and it was reincarnated as Yuno, then it would make sense that Yuno wasn't able to become self-aware, or the elf inside him wasn't able to become self-aware of itself, because it never was born. It never actually had a life. It was alive inside of her. That's why the reason why it was able to be reincarnated as Yuno. But as far as becoming aware of itself, since it was never actually born, it never actually grew a conscience. Now, those are the main clues I keep seeing people bring up in defense of the theory. And for the most part, that actually, looking at those clues, they actually make a lot of sense as to the reason why Lich actually, or Yuno could actually be Lich's son. And actually kind of, is pretty convincing. But at the same time, there's one big, thing that people keep bringing up that debunks the theory. And that's the fact that, the whole massacre of the elves happened over 200 years ago. So there's no real possible way for Lich or for Yuno to actually be Lich's son, because there's no way he would survive that long as a baby. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we can't tell from the most recent flashback whether or not Tetia actually did give birth to her and Lich's son, or their child, before she died. So if she actually did die before giving birth to the child, it makes a lot more sense as to the reason why Yuno could be their child. Because just like all the other elves, he was brought back from Lich's, reincarnation magic. It just wasn't perfect. And once Patoli finished the reincarnation magic, his soul was brought back into Yuno's body. But if Tetia actually did give birth to the baby before she died, then it doesn't make a lot of sense as to, how it survived the massacre and how it survived 200 years in a baby form before growing up to become the Yuno we know in the present day. Now, there is one thing I saw someone bring up that actually could defend that argument, and that's basically the fact that time magic does exist in this world. Prime example is the Magic Emperor Julius. We saw the fact that he actually did have time manipulation magic. Now, his wasn't on the level as, sending someone to the future, kind of like what happened in Fairy Tail with all the Dragon Slayers. But who's to say that the first Magic Emperor didn't actually have the same magic ability? Maybe, since it was his nephew and since he had such a strong connection between Tetia and Lich, and the fact that he probably felt guilt at the fact that, his people were basically the reason why the elves were destroyed. Who's to say that he didn't use his time manipulation magic, if he actually did have that, to send Litch and Tetia's child to the future? Now that argument isn't perfect, especially since we don't know what the first Magic Emperor's magic ability was, or his magical element was. But if his magical element was actually time manipulation, just like Joyce's was, then there's a huge possibility that that theory might actually be true, with Litch and Tetia's son being sent to the future by him out of guilt and, out of wanting to protect his own nephew. Now, like I said, when I first heard about this theory, I kind of wrote it off as not being possible at first too. But after looking at all the evidence and after looking at the most recent chapter of the way Yuno kind of reacted, and the fact that it looked like the real Litch, might actually been kind of watching Yuno the entire time, I'm kind of starting to think that the theory actually might be kind of possible. But like I said, we don't know. We'll have to wait to see what happens in the future of the series to find out if it's actually true or not. But that's pretty much all I had to say about the topic. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on this whole theory. And catch you guys later. Peace.